Well, let's just get right into it because there's a lot to cover. But this is Cable No More, Part 1, Cutting the Cord, brought to you by the Orland Park Public Library. And in this first part, we're going to talk about the first steps before you actually get to the setup process as far as getting specific services and whatnot. So in this part, we're going to talk about the difference in bills, what the bills add up to for specific stuff, the different services that are offered, what you need to acquire to stream with these platforms, and so on and so forth. So let's get started. Tonight, we will cover a case study, which will give a hypothetical scenario of a current Comcast customer. And we will discuss how does your cable bill work, which is what's included and how much you pay and what do you really need. And we're going to talk about the ISPs and hardware, which ISP means it is your internet service provider, whether it be Comcast or AT&T. And the hardware to rent or buy, whether it be anything like a Roku, Amazon Fire Stick, or any equipment that involves using those to stream the stuff. So that's what we'll be discussing today. So what does it look like? ISP and hardware, which is, like I said before, the ISP is who your internet service provider is, whether it could be either Comcast with Xfinity or AT&T or some other third party. And the hardware, like I talked about before, where it could be either Roku, Amazon Fire Stick, smart TV, or another plethora of stuff. And then the streaming services, which is what the content on the actual platforms are for, whether it be Netflix, Hulu, Peacock, HBO Max, and that kind of stuff. And the streaming device, like the Roku or the Amazon Fire Stick, and so on and so forth. So first you'll need an ISP and hardware. So you'd have to either choose Xfinity or AT&T, or there's a plethora of other ones I'll get into later that you can go with, but those are the big two as far as the uptime, as far as keeping a consistent internet speed and quality, and the ones that people usually think of when they think of ISPs. And second, you'll need to sign up for the online streaming services that I'll talk about later on. And then finally, you need to get a content streamer, whether it be Roku, Amazon Fire Stick, Smart TV, or anything like that. So let's talk about a kind of dummy scenario here where we'll cover a current Comcast triple play customer, just to give a general kind of idea of what people could be paying or you could be paying if you currently have a cable package, whether it be cable, internet, and phone, or cable and internet, or something around that area. So before, like for instance, Comcast triple play would be $226 per month, which creeped to $239 per month over the course of her year-long contract due to changing fees. So sometimes with that bullet point, that eventually when you sign up with one of these ISPs or with one of these cable companies, that they'll start you off at a very low price to begin with if you have one of those big cable packages. And they'll say, hey, if you start right now, it'll be $50 per month. And then eventually over that year, every single year, the bill will every so often get raised in some form of way, whether it be box fees, whether it be service fees, HD service fees sometimes. So that's why sometimes that low price is kind of like the kind of gateway to kind of get you started, and then they'll expect you to not read the fine print, and then eventually after the full year your stuff can just skyrocket up in price. So, and the bill would have risen up to $271 per month when contract was up. So sometimes, like I said before, where over time, every so often they'll keep raising the price, whether it be hidden fees, whether it be extra add-ons that you're not aware of, and stuff like that. So, and the bill is included with equipment rental. So what you do is sometimes, if you don't notice that, when you get a cable package on your statement, sometimes it'll tell you, depending on who you have, it'll tell you what each fee is, whether it be cable, internet, phone, and they'll tell you what they'll kind of break each down. And then, like, for instance, with the cable section, they'll tell you, hey, you're paying this much for this Illinois service fee or this HD service fee for the cable box, or you're paying sometimes, like I've seen and I've dealt with, where they charge you for each individual extra box besides the main DVR box. So sometimes they kind of hide that stuff in there. And then after we kind of go through everything right now, you could be paying $169. It's just like a kind of round number, or a lot less. I could probably get you down to under 100 or under even 50 for that matter, depending on what route you kind of go with and what kind of factors you kind of add up to that point. So, and here's the cost breakdown. So you can go from $226, $239 per month to, like I said, $169 or a lot less than that. So each one of these kind of bullet points right here, I'll go into very diligently and explain what each means and what you need, and give you different options of what you can use as far as services and what you can potentially eliminate. So you have your hardware. So it depends if you want to either get your own hardware from either Walmart, Best Buy, or anything that sells routers or modems or anything like that. And then you pay sometimes these ISPs like AT&T and Xfinity to give you service, but then they're not going to charge you extra to either install the gateway itself, which gives you the internet, or anything like that, or any kind of extra service fees that go include with like these rental fees. So the hardware, like for example, for Google Wi-Fi, which is a mesh router, and they'll give you 3 pods for about $300, where what that is that it's a Wi-Fi extender where you'll get 3 pods and you can put them at each kind of point around your house. So then you have any network drops, whether it be, instead of having like a big gateway at one part of your house and then you walk away from it and then the signal gets weaker, instead you'll have 3 star pods, and then you kind of get a wider range of internet as far as no downtime or no internet drops. And then, like for example, about $100 for an Aris surfboard modem, which gives you the internet itself, modem or router, just something that actually gives you the internet as some kind of example. And then there's also options too for cheap antennas. So like, for instance, if you want one of these streaming services and then they don't have something specifically that you're looking for, you do have the option of getting one of those cheaper satellite stereo antennas that you can find out even any corner store like Walgreens or Walmart or anything like that, where you can buy that and you can have that other alternative that would be a lot cheaper and give you extra options on top of buying specific streaming services. So now we're going to get into the services themselves. I kind of highlighted about roughly 5 to 10 right here that are the biggest ones. And I kind of rank them from most expensive to least expensive. And I'll touch upon each one of them now. And then later on, I'll show what each website kind of looks like. And then you can kind of get a feel for what you're kind of paying for and what you're looking for. So first is YouTube TV, which is at $65 per month. So that's the thing too. When you get a streaming service, you're not locked into a contract. There's a lot of ISPs that either lock you into contracts for like 2 years, or they lock you in for a certain amount and then you can't break away from them. With these, and with getting your own hardware too, that you're not locked into those fees. Where like with what I'm talking about right now with YouTube TV being $65 a month, that's only $65 per month. And having any hidden fees, any extra fees, any extra stuff added on, it's just that flat fee. And the cool thing is you can cancel at any time with any of these services. So for instance, a lot of times people want to try something out. A lot of the times these services, if after you enter in some form of payment, you have the option to have that week free trial. And then if you don't like it, you can cancel before the free trial ends. And then you don't get charged anymore, just to get of kind of a footing of what it looks like. So there's that. And with YouTube TV, what that is, it's a streaming service is kind of like a hybrid where you get the live TV experience, but without having that extra fee or be locked to, like, for instance, YouTube TV has a feature where you can record at any point like you would on a DVR on a cable box. And then the thing is, with a cable box, the bad part is that you have a certain amount of space that you have before either the box automatically deletes your recordings or anything like that. But with this, you have an endless amount of storage. So you can be saying, hey, I want to record the news for, let's say you go to CBS and you're like, hey, I want to record the news. And you want to continuously record. You can keep even news broadcasts from like years ago, even like 2-3 years ago, and not have to worry about it taking up any extra space and get automatically deleted by accident or something. So, and then along with YouTube TV is that they have their live channels where they'll have like the blocks like normal cable boxes do. You can also move around stuff, add and delete certain channels depending on what you look for, like you would a normal cable box. And you also have the option too of, they have their own hubs where you can go to CBS and then go to their shows, and they'll have a list of everything they have up to a certain extent of stuff you can watch instead of having to record it or try to catch it live. So that's a good alternative, but it's kind of on the pricey side. It's kind of like the closest thing to getting to cable without getting to cable, with paying anywhere from $100+ So, and then next we have Sling Blue and Orange for $50 a month, which along with YouTube TV kind of gives you that cable experience without paying the cable price. So for instance, like with Sling Blue and Orange, which I'll get into later, that Sling Blue and Orange each have their own set amount of channels. So Blue will have its own set of channels. So you'll get like CBS, NBC, or something like that. And then on the Orange package, you have your Cartoon Networks or like TBS or TNT or something like that, where each package kind of has their own set amount of channels. Not channels, but yeah, channels. So each one has a specific different fee. And if you bundle them together, you get that $50 a month. So then next, we're going to be getting into the cheaper alternatives, that what you think of first when you think of streaming platforms, which a lot of these listed right here will have either they'll be owned by specific cable companies like Turner or like Viacom or anything like that, where they'll have their own programming that you can't get on the other platforms because they'd have to basically buy the license to that to air it for that month. And then you have the constant problem too with specific ones is that if that platform doesn't own that specific show or movie, you'll have the problem too of eventually it will actually get removed the next month sometimes, or something along the line of that, where you could either keep or lose that specific show or movie if they don't have the license to show that show or movie. So first, we're talking about one of the more expensive alternatives, which is Netflix. And the thing is with Netflix is that they have different plans and they kind of have different hierarchies of those plans, where you have it kind of is like a stepping stone hierarchy where you have a low price, like I'll get into later, where you have, like, for instance, like their basic package is standard definition that you're locked to, and you're locked to a specific amount of devices that you can actually stream with it. And then as you kind of go up, you go to the next tier and you have the capabilities of HD, and you can also have a higher amount of devices you can be logged into at the same time that is connected to that. And then you go a hierarchy upward to 4K, you get a higher amount of display quality, and you get a higher amount of devices you can have logged in at the same time. So that's kind of like the double-edged sword of Netflix, where the thing with Netflix is that it's not like something like I'll get to later, like HBO Max or Peacock or Paramount Plus, where Netflix has their own programming, but since they're not owned by one of those major cable companies, that it lacks in the exclusivity of having a large network of stuff that you've either heard of or you wanted to watch. So you have to keep that in mind. And then next, if you go $1 less per month, you have HBO Max. And like I said before, with stuff like HBO Max, the benefit that that service has is that it's owned by Turner Broadcasting, which has a plethora of licenses under its belt. Like, for instance, you have your TBS shows, you have your Cartoon Network shows, your Turner Classic Movie stuff, or you have your anime, or you have your, let me think of one more, like your movie companies, like you have New Line Cinema, which is owned by Turner, or like you have your Lord of the Rings movies or something like that, where a platform like that has this exclusivity where you don't have to worry about specific things leaving and then not coming back. And the benefit with HBO Max over Netflix is that you have the ability to stream based on whatever the original quality of the show or movie is in. And you don't have to worry about being locked down to a set amount of devices you can have logged in. Like with Netflix, you'll have a cap where you'll have 4 or 6 at the same time. And then with HBO Max, you can be logged into 10 or 15 at a time in the same room or outside of the same room or same house. So you have that. And the cool thing about HBO Max, unlike Netflix, is that with that, now with the pandemic and the current situation with that, is that you'll have the option of day one movie drops. So anything new that comes out, like for instance, the Zack Snyder's cut of Justice League, where normally that would have come out in theaters, and then that's be the only place you'd be able to see it. But then when it comes to HBO Max, if you already have a subscription, you have the opportunity to watch that day one and not have to go to a theater. So they have these different options where you can watch at home or in theaters. So you have that luxury. And the thing too with these streaming platforms is that you have the account basis stuff where you can have multiple profiles that, for instance, if you want to have you have a dad, a mom, a brother and sister, they can each make their own accounts underneath their own profiles underneath the same account. And they can have stuff that's catered to them in their profile, and you don't have to worry about seeing anybody else's other programs are watching or anything like that. So then next, we'll get into the $13 tier, which is actually a bundle. So each one of these is underneath $10 per month, but they incentivize you get Hulu, Disney Plus, and ESPN Plus all together for $13, which is less if you add up all of those by themselves, if you got those by themselves. So with Hulu, it's the same thing as Netflix, where it's not owned by a major cable company. So then you don't have that luxury of keeping a show or movie on there for a long period of time, because they'll either take it away and bring it back next month, or it'll be brought somewhere else. And then with Hulu by itself, it's $5 if you wanted to get it separately. And then with Disney Plus, you have the exclusivity of your Disney stuff, whether it be movies, shows, and then that's now risen to $7. And the thing with Disney Plus is that, unlike the other platforms that I'm talking about right now, is that, like, for instance, a new movie comes out that they have the option that they usually make to, for instance, you're already paying for Disney Plus, and then, for instance, they release a new movie, they actually can charge, if you wanted to see a movie that comes out day one on their platform, they charge you an extra $30 just to watch that one movie, like if it's the first weekend or the first couple weekends, so they don't lose out on that initial box office release. And then you have ESPN Plus, which is the hub for all of your sports, NFL, MLB, NBA, and stuff like that. So then that all together, if you add up, it would be more expensive than $13 if you bought them separately instead of having them as a bundle. So that's why I recommend the bundle if you want to get all three of them put together. And then next, for $7 a month, you have Paramount Plus, which used to be CBS All Access, which again is owned by another major cable company, which is, you have Paramount / CBS, which you have your CBS shows like your news, your live sports events, and you have your Paramount side with all of your Nickelodeon stuff. You have your releases from Paramount underneath their umbrella as far as movies. So you have that option. And then along with the other ones, you can create profiles underneath the same account. And last but not least, one of the other major big platforms that's risen, that's owned by NBC, is Peacock. So with that, it's $5 per month. And the catch is, you can make a free account without paying any kind of premium, but then you'll be locked to specific movies and maybe the first season or two of a show, or there'll be specific shows locked off to the $5 premium. So the thing is with that too, you have your NBC shows, and you have your movies, and you have your, now they just newly added stuff from WWE, which now in America is its own exclusive network in America. So you have, like I said before, these specific things that are exclusive to that platform. And then if you wanted to pay an extra fee, it would be $10, and then you wouldn't get ads, because with the $5 fee, you have ads in specific things depending on what it is. And two, with those services, you have the option to get those free with specific plans, whether it be a phone plan or with getting an ISP. So sometimes, like for instance, I think with Xfinity, if you get a specific price point, with the megabits per second download speed, they'll give you Peacock for free, which in hindsight sounds like a deal, but it's really not, because you basically get the price you pay for Peacock bundled in with that. So it'd be like you're paying it, but not. It's kind of that kind of ballpark. So there you kind of have like a brief gist of what's out there, and I'll give visual representations later as far as what they look like. And then you can eliminate landline telephone and the cable TV service with this kind of option, where now we live in this day and age where everybody has a cell phone. And the thing is, cell phones are so cheap these days, and phone plans are so cheap these days, that it would be unwise to even still keep a landline telephone, because with a landline telephone, if you bundle it with the TV service, they'll charge you a higher premium, which we're trying to eliminate. And the same thing with the cable TV service, where a lot of the times, even though you can go up to the hundreds if you want to get like 1,000 megabits per second download speed, which is really high, but even with that, you have that option of not spending like $130 or $50 just for that cable package. So keep that in mind. Now we'll talk about, how do you feel about the Switch? So we'll talk about the pros and cons. Pro, much more affordable. Like I said before, you have, like for instance, if I kind of build a little case scenario here, if you want to get like Peacock, HBO Max, and Paramount Plus, you're only going to be paying like $30, $35 a month, opposed to, for a cable package, be spending $130 a month. And then antenna works great even in inclement weather. So like I said before, you have the option where if any of these platforms don't have specific things, you have the option of getting a cheap antenna, and then you can put it in your house, and you have the option of getting the local channels or specific things like sports events if you don't want to pay the high premium, or like for instance, like the local channels or the news channels, depends on what you want to pay for. So also, original programming on Amazon Prime and Netflix, there's more options now than there were before, but with those, like I said, keep in mind, since they're not owned by these big cable companies, they have their exclusivity with the stuff they make in-house, but they don't have any of your big names of shows or movies linked to them where they can't leave the next month or 2 months from that point. And the thing is too, everything is month to month. So you don't worry about paying a high premium for having like a year or two contract. And the thing is too, like I said before, you can actually just get the free trial instead of paying for the stuff and try it out. Or if you pay for the subscription and you find out you don't want it after a while, you can cancel it and then they won't charge you anymore. You don't have to worry about paying an early exiters fee or anything like that to quit that service. And then there are some cons which are believable, which is that there is an adjustment period. Things work differently and settings are different. So what that means is that it's a lot to unpack, but once you start using the stuff and the subscription services and the equipment, you don't have to worry about paying a high premium anymore or anything. And it becomes still this nice ease of mind of having, you like with Roku's, you have a physical remote, so you don't have to worry about having an app or anything. So it's a big adjustment on paper, but then in execution, it's not that difficult. And then always have my cell phone near, like I said before, where everybody has a cell phone now, and cell phones are so dirt cheap along with plans that not having a landline is a benefit in itself of paying a lower premium, one, and you always have your cell phone with you in your pocket or next to you because it is a necessity in this everyday life. So, and then, like I said before, where like stuff with ESPN Plus, CBS, All Access / Paramount Plus, or anything like that, they have sports, but sometimes they don't have every single thing you're looking for. So keep that in mind. And then when another con too is when the internet is out, everything is out. So like for instance, if you have a gateway and you have your cable box and your device is connected to that, you're kind of stuck. So it's basically still the same as having cable and stuff, but then at the same time, it's not, where no matter what, power goes out, everything goes out. So it's self-explanatory. And remember, be vigilant. Comcast keeps trying to charge you, and sometimes AT&T too, for things you don't no longer have. Like for instance, they'll still have fees lingering around, extra service fees. So keep that in mind. How does your cable bill work? In a report released from October 31st, 2018, the research group states that the average monthly cable satellite TV bill for American households is around the $107 mark. This is 50% from 2010, and this is not including internet services. So like I said before, the cable sometimes is the big killer, where you'll almost always be spending over $100, and you actually can find other streaming platforms that you can be living without these specific things and be paying a lower premium. What's in a current cable package? Internet. So when you see a bundle, you see your internet, which is, there's always additional charge for renting a gateway, additional charge for internet security options, additional charge for proprietary extenders, mesh systems. So like for instance, Xfinity is a big offender of this, where you, like for instance, you get your internet and then you have a set amount of megabits per second. They give you a 1.2 terabyte hard cap. What that means is that once you between streaming gaming or streaming platforms or just regular internet usage, if it gets that 1.2 terabyte limit, they'll completely cap you off. You can't actually use internet at all unless you want to pay them the extra amount and then get extra stuff to it. And then they do charge for additional internet security options like antivirus and stuff, like hidden fees, like I said before. And then they also have additional charges for Wi-Fi extenders and mesh systems. So you're paying a monthly premium instead of paying for one flat rate. And then you have that forever instead of having to pay that consistently forever. And then TV has additional charges for cable boxes. You have your HD service fee, like I talked about before, paying for channels you don't even use. So you have like these, for example, with AT&T Uverse, you have your U200, 300, you're having a plethora, I'd say about 200 plus channels you don't even watch. You can mitigate that fee and that worry And if you get one of these streaming platforms, you can pick and choose. There are websites that I'll show later, like Just Watch and Real Good, that will let you know what streaming platforms have specific movies and TV shows. And if you can kind of add them up all together, you can find one streaming platform that has everything you're looking for, and you can be paying about $100 or more less than what you're paying right now. So there is that. And then for phone, if you have a cell phone, do you really need a landline? Because like I said, phones are so cheap these days. Plans are so cheap. They're as cheap as $10, $15 a month. And you have unlimited talk, text, and 2 gigs, 3 gigs of data just in the emergency. And then if you put into math, what are you paying per channel? Sometimes you'll be paying 20 to 30 cents per month for just like Food Network, HGTV, Comedy Central, MSNBC, and Cartoon Network, or 40 to 80 cents per month for Discovery Channel, AMC, CNN, Nickelodeon, $1.07 for USA, Fox, $1.55, TNT, $2.09, ESPN, $7.86. So think about that. ESPN by itself on a cable network, you're basically paying the same exact price for one specific thing that you'd be paying elsewhere, and you get a plethora of content that you're not locked into. Now we'll talk about ISPs and hardware. Like I said before, we have the big two, Comcast and AT&T. Like I said, where Comcast they sometimes have faster speeds, but then, like I said before, they have their data caps, and they sometimes can be more expensive than AT&T in certain aspects. And and also AT&T, they have their own stuff, so they have similar but different perks per rate, like I'll get into later. How does cable internet service work? Services delivered to home by coaxial or fiber cable. Coaxial above ground, fiber cable underground. You have different ups and down times, meaning how much leeway you have as far as getting your cable knocked out or your internet knocked out or anything like that. The cable signal is split across houses, whether it be satellite or something like that. Wire coaxial cable goes to the cable boxes and gateway modems. So for instance, right now, if you have a gateway from either AT&T or Xfinity/Comcast, they're all connected to that gateway because that's how they get their service. And like I said just right now, gateway delivers wireless service throughout the house, or a modem runs to the router, which delivers a wireless signal throughout the house. So everything that you're connecting to, whether it be cable or internet, are all going to that same big gateway box. Mesh system is like having it's like having small routers around your house. Like I said, instead of having that one gateway in that room halfway across the house, and then the farther you go away from it, the signal becomes weaker and you're not able to load up certain web pages as fast. With a mesh system like Google Wi-Fi, they'll give you 3 pods you can place around your house in sporadic points to where you don't have to have that downtime ever again. Let's talk about the hardware now. Device service, the installation could cost anywhere from $20 to $100. So what that means is that if you don't hook the stuff up yourself, and if you're paying for the ISP to come out to you and set that stuff up, you have to pay that installation fee for that guy to come out and set out that gateway and that cable box and stuff like that. So that's the kind of price you pay if you want to set up your own stuff. And the thing is too, the first TV box is free, but then the thing is, each additional TV box could be $10 each per month. So for instance, you have your main DVR box, it's free, but then the catch is that every other person's box, you have 2 other boxes, you're paying extra $20 a month. So you're still technically paying for an extra box, putting stuff onto your boxes. And then you have your internet gateway, which with X-Fi Advantage, you can either be paying $13 or $15 per month. And that's specifically pertaining to Xfinity, where you either have the hard data cap, which is 1.2 terabytes to start out with, or you pay for the Xfi Advantage option, which is an extra $30 per month to have unlimited, which is a ripoff in a way. And the Xfi pods are about $119 for a 3-pack, which you can find other pods otherwhere else for cheaper amount without having to pay a service fee. Let's talk about the fees now. Type of fee, you have a TV broadcast fee, which can be $8 per month. That means you're basically paying a price for that cable company to broadcast that stuff to you. You have your regional sports fee, depending on where you're at, which could be $6.75 per month. So depending on where you're at, they could be charging you extra fees to watch specific sports. You have your DVR fee. So if your cable box has DVR, you're paying a $10 a month fee or around that part. Your HD fee. So for instance, if you're not wanting to lock yourself down to standard definition quality for your cable box or something like that, you have that extra HD fee you're paying unnecessarily to have HD stuff, instead of paying one flat fee like $7 for like Disney Plus, but everything isn't 4K. So you have that thing. And also they add all these other taxes on top of it, whether it be Illinois tax or something like that. And it all slowly adds up to where eventually you'll look at the end of your extra service fees and then you'll be paying $40-50 just for having a cable box. So keep that in mind. And like I said before, 10 to 20% of your bill can be eliminated just by going with strictly internet and streaming. Types of setups. You have your own conventional gateway, like you see on the left picture over there, that you have in the back, your 2 ports for your service. You have your power port for the gateway to power, your Ethernet cable to go to your router, or sometimes now, like with AT&T, they have everything built in one. They have one gateway that has the router and the modem built into one. So you don't have to worry about having 3 separate devices doing the same thing. And then you have your battery if you want to reset the box or something like that, the cable outlet, and then the coax splitter may be needed depending on what you have. And like I said, the gateway setup where everything built into one, instead of having 3 separate devices doing the same thing, you have all these extra wires and stuff running around your carpet and floor and just a mess. And then, like I said, there's the mesh setup where instead of having a gateway in one part of your house, you have the option of having 3 to 5, and you can sporadically place them around your house. And then you're not having that weak signal and these long loading times for all these websites if you have them spread around your house. They have ease of access, so there's no separate network. They're all connected to one gateway. Reliability, like I said, no signal drops. Dynamic routing, flexibility, and also sometimes they're better secure than gateway sometimes, so keep that in mind. Remember, you can do this and the library can help. We do offer Rokus for checkout. You have a week to check them out and you have an extra week to check them out again. So sometimes you can check them out from 2 to 4 weeks. So what the Roku is, as I talked about before, you can turn any TV into a smart TV if you want and add all those options, those streaming options to that. And you have the traditional remote, and all it is an HDMI stick, and then it uses a power cable to go into the floor. So you still have that physical remote if you're scared of using, say, a mobile app or something like that. And we also offer hotspots, which have unlimited 4G Wi-Fi, like I said, where you have a week to check it out and then another week for renewal. And then this way, you have to worry about paying for internet. So if you want to try out, say, a Roku and a hotspot combined, you can check both out and you kind of get a feel for it before you venture out to do your own stuff. And then we have stuff like that. And also the smart home speakers are also an option too. So you can kind of play with that and mix and match with your mesh routers and stuff like that. So you have that in mind. And that's it for the PowerPoint. So I'm going to let this portion be for the questions. So let me get back and let me share the screen right now. And let me go into Edge, and I'll leave this portion for anybody who has any questions as I'm showing everybody the different stuff around this area, and you kind of have a feel for what you're looking for. So first, like I was talking about before, where you have, I'll go into Xfinity right now. And then right here, you would type in your address, and then it would give you, like, for instance, we put a random address up here. I don't know, 3S. And by doing that, depending on where you live, they'll give you different options. So if you want, when you go over here, let me see if I can find the representation of it. So feel free to ask any questions if anybody's lost by now or has anything they want to have clarified for them. Like right here, where you have all these different options, like 25 megabits per second, 100 to 200. And each time you go up, you spend a premium, and then you have the hard data cap if you so choose to not go for the X5 option for the extra $30 per month. They have unlimited data caps. So you have that in mind. And two, sometimes, like with some of these options, that if you get to a certain hierarchy of pricing, like in the 600 to 800 megabits per second range, you have the option of getting Peacock for free or Hbo Max for free, depending on what you're looking for. And then the same thing for AT&T. You can check your availability. And then, like I said, as you kind of go up over time, you have higher speeds, you're paying more. But the thing is, with AT&T, you're not having data caps. So that's a good option as far as using an ISP to switch to. Now, let me show some of the equipment that you could use. Okay, got our first question. So if you have your own router, the question is, if you have your own router and if you cancel Comcast, will that be sufficient? Currently don't have any issues with dead spots. Additionally, how do we get local channels like WGN, ABC? So the thing is with that is that if you cancel Comcast, you can still get, like, Comcast is still a part owner of Xfinity, but if you switch plans and you just go right for the internet and then you use your own router, you have that option, and you won't have any dead spots. If you say want, like I'll show in a little bit, if you want to get one of those Google Wi-Fi pods, where if you put them around your house, that you'll have any dead space depending on how far you are and how fast the signal strength is. And then with the local channels, some of those, for instance, are on some of those streaming platforms. Like each one has their own streaming platform. If you kind of look stuff up, If you want the local channels, like if you want news and stuff like that, the antenna is the option, like I said before. But if you want specific news broadcasts, CBS and stuff like that still has options of, like, they have their own makeshift live viewing experience. But yeah, like if you're using Comcast and Xfinity interchangeably, if you drop just the cable portion and you just stick to your current router and then you're paying for the internet, you should be good if you have those pods, if your house or area is big enough. So if that kind of answers your question. And then if you're confused about who the ISP would be if you purchase a Google, okay, to clarify, when you get a Google Wi-Fi mesh router, what it is that it doesn't give you the internet without the ISP. The ISP is your internet service provider. They're the ones that you pay to get the internet service. Like, besides hotspots and stuff like that, you need those guys to give you the internet access to use those streaming platforms or to use your internet. Like I talked about before, where you have that option to have either AT&T or Xfinity, you still pay that fee, but you're only paying for that internet fee. And then with that, they give you the access to use internet through them. It's kind of like a metaphorical handshake in a way, where you go from your house to with the gateway there to the lines to their servers and stuff like that over where they're located at, and then they give you the actual internet. So to clarify, ISPs are the companies who give you the internet, whether it be Xfinity or AT&T. And if you get a mesh router, all that does is that if you already have a router at your house, or if you have internet already at your house, it's like a Wi-Fi extender. So you have to worry about, if you walk too far away, the internet speeds get slower, and then you have signal drops for if you're searching the internet or you're watching YouTube or any other streaming platform. So the cable portion of Xfinity gets canceled. Xfinity is kept as the ISP. Yeah. So what that is that it's like one big cable package. I'll show you right here. So I'll give you a visual example of what you have. So if you go over here, and then you have, that's the internet I was talking about. The Xfinity is actually its own thing as far as like with the internet. But then if you go for Comcast with the cable, that you would, here, it'll be very clear as far as what I'm talking about if I show a visual representation of what I'm talking about. Let's see. Here you go. Let's see. Cable TV linear bundles. Yeah, Xfinity X1, where you have your cable. So Xfinity is owned by Comcast, and they have their own bundle too. Like you'll have your TV and streaming, your internet. So it's like separate plans underneath the same umbrella. So for instance, if you want to cancel your cable and then you say, I want to stick straightly to the internet itself, you can, but sometimes they do have introductory prices if you are a new customer, where they'll start you at a low fee for the first year, and they will raise it after the first year, but it won't be anything astronomical like a cable bundle. So if that answers your question. So let me get into visual representations of the two big that I use. to kind of give you a visual representation of what that looks like. Here's Peacock, which is $4.99 a month. Right here, you can sign up for Peacock for free, but then you have limited resources, which is either like the first episode, the first season or two of a show, specific movies. And then Peacock Premium is when you start paying for it, you get a 7-day free trial and you get everything that they have. But sometimes specifically when you watch specific things, they'll have ads fairly often, not often enough to where it's like cable, but depending on what they have and what you're viewing, you'll have a different array of commercials and ads, not commercials, but ads, that if you want to get rid of that. And then the thing is, with the $5 fee, it's not that crushing as far as with the amount of ads that there are, because it's very little. So if you have that option to you, I would definitely pick the $4.99 over the $9.99 a month, because even if you go without ads, it's not different enough to warrant paying the extra $4 or $5 per month. So keep that in mind. Like right here, you have like a gist of like what you can kind of watch here: Harry Potter, Modern Family, Yellowstone, live events like WWE, Saved by the Bell, The Office. So each network kind of like this, you have your own kind of exclusivity per se. And then I go to HBO Max, like right here, where you have the $14.99 per month, cancel anytime. And then you have stuff that's exclusive to streaming on that platform. Or you have stuff like, for instance, if I scroll down, you have all the newest movies like The Suicide Squad, Godzilla vs. Kong, The Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It, The Many Saints of Newark. Like all these are new movies that are coming out in theaters, but you can watch them exclusively on HBO Max if you're paying for that subscription. You have to worry about going to the theater. So you have that big option there. And then I'll show stuff with the clarify even more in depth, the Google Wi-Fi mesh routers. So now it's rebranded as Nest Wi-Fi, but it's $149 and you get a set amount in a package, and it extends the Wi-Fi range that you have. So you're not having that same issue where you're walking farther away from your gateway and then you're losing your internet speed the farther you get away, if it's farther enough away. So keep that in mind. So I'll go back to the end here. So I'll leave a little bit of extra time for any more questions, because there will be a part 2 in 2 weeks where I can have more time to answer more questions. And there is more to get into beside this that I get to talk about beside this stuff. So keep that in mind. If you have a question right now, or if you don't have one right now and you want to wait till the next class, then I can answer more questions if you come up, or if you want to email me at this email that I have listed in the slide if you have any questions.